Hey everybody, welcome to episode 12 of the Road to the ProcureTech Cup. I'm Joël Canadamas, your host, the editor at the Pure Procurement newsletter and consulting principal at Pure Procurement. Really happy to have you here today for the Road to the ProcureTech Cup. So this is the show where we show you the art of the possible in terms of what you could do with procurement technology. I'm joined this week not by Gabe Perez, my usual co-host, but I'm joined by Sheena Smith, Senior VP of Growth at RiseNow, but also a ProcureTech market expert in your own right, Sheena?
Correct. Been here for 15 plus years. Never thought I'd stay, but here I am.
It just keeps getting interesting, stays interesting.
It keeps getting more and more interesting. I know. I agree. I have to stick around. I love it here. So thanks for having me this week.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And I hope, I'm sure you'll add some color to our discussion with who's coming on the show today. So we'll get to that in just a second. But just to reiterate what the Road to the ProcureTech Cup is, we're meeting with ProcureTech software vendors weekly on Fridays at noon as right now to be able to show you the art of the possible, right? So in the last couple of weeks, we're actually pretty much at the midway point. So Canopy's coming on today and we'll introduce you to Doug McLean, their founder and executive chairman in just a second here. We'll bring him on. How's it going, Doug?
Very good. Welcome, everybody. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks so much for joining us. So Canopy, we'll go over the company overview in just a second here. So Doug will tell us what it's all about, his unique value proposition for the tool, ideal customer profile, and then we'll dive, I should say, straight into a solution demo. Sheena will lead off the let's get real questions, making sure that we're diving into the crunchy details of what could go wrong in these types of implementations or the types of things you should consider before using a tool like this, and then mapping Canopy's tool to the ProcureTech market map so that you know where it fits in the landscape compared to other solutions that we've been looking at on the show. So that being said, Doug, if you want to share your screen, we'll bring the solution or your slides up, and we'll be able to get going here on Canopy and what you've got to present for us.
Okay. Are we all seeing that the starting slide?
I'm not seeing your screen just yet, but as you share your screen, I'll just remind folks that are watching live to say hi in the comments. We can also see your live questions if you want to ask Doug or Sheena and I anything as we go here. And if there's a relevant question, I'll bring it up for Doug to answer live on the show. So, yep, Doug, I can see your screen. I'm going to add it to the stage here, and we can see your slides. So feel free to go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, welcome everybody. Let me talk you through Canopy. So welcome. We are a supplier onboarding and management platform. We create a golden record for suppliers. We eliminate manual administration. Very simple user interface, nice design, accessible to everybody in the business. So everybody in your business can see supplier data. It's not limited to procurement. We are a UK-based company. We're private company. We're self-funded. We've got a very expert team. We've been building supplier portals for around about 20 years now. So built a lot of portals for very big global enterprise organizations from about 2013 onwards. And then in 2022, we sat down and we decided we'd take everything that we'd learned and we'd build a product. That product is called Canopy. It comes in 3 tiers and it's designed to address the complete marketplace from the smallest SME up to the biggest enterprise. And to do that, it comes in 3 tiers. Initially, Canopy Collect, to collect supplier information, a very low entry point from a cost perspective. And then we go to Connect, where we connect with the suppliers, and Control, where we share that information with upstream and downstream systems in the business. We've had a few awards. We're ISO 3402 compliant, so very structured in the way that we manage data on behalf of our clients. So we securely collect, store, manage, connect, share, approve anything to do with supplier data all in one place. And that will be certificates, risk, diversity, health and safety, spend data, supply contracts, basically any document or any qualification a supplier has that you might need to connect for your own risk mitigation purposes. as I say, built for any size of team. So collect. I think, I find that procurement teams aren't very good at convincing finance people to invest in tools to help them do their jobs. So hopefully we've come at it where even the biggest organization, you can start using Collect, start managing your supplier data. And I think by doing that, you'll highlight to your finance teams and the management within the business what they're actually missing. The top problems we solve: how to connect with thousands of suppliers. We establish a conduit. We request information. It's very dynamic. We do not ask for stuff that is not going to be required. Too many platforms out there ask dumb questions. Suppliers don't like it. They don't want to fill in stuff that isn't very relevant. So we have a very comprehensive workflow. We monitor. We get around about 97% document renewal by automation, which saves procurement teams an awful lot of time chasing up things like renewal of insurance certificates, etc. We share the information with upstream systems like ERP, S2P, P2P, CLM systems. So we've integrated with pretty much everything over the last 20 years or so. So we're quite experienced in that market. And we ensure that our clients only trade with qualified approved suppliers with a single master record. What's unique about us? We have a very unique licensing model. It's an enterprise product at an SME price. We have a very clear pricing. Collect, it's $129 per month, everything included. Connect is $2,599, Control $3,999. So it's very manageable. We like to think that it's less than the cost of one decent administrator. It will do the work of 10. And so that's the real value proposition. It's a bespoke portal to each client. It's not a shared system. Very simple UX UI, highly secure, very dynamic, and we include all elements of risk and spend, performance, anything that you might to monitor on a supplier profile. That's us in 7 minutes, and I'm going to take you to a demonstration now. I'm going to give you a quick whiz around the platform. And can you all see my screen here?
Yeah, we can see that. I'd love it as you go through. I'm really interested in this concept of like the on-ramp, right? The 129 pricing. Like, I'd love to get a sense of what I get for that versus what I get for the bigger licenses, because I love that concept of the on-ramp with transparent pricing.
Yeah. And then from my perspective, one thing is, so you talked about working in very large, global, complex environments, who I'm sure love seeing $129 a month pricing, right? But who are not your ICPs? Where are the environments where you do not play well?
We like to think we play across the board. I mean, our biggest client, we're managing 100,000 suppliers in 60 countries in every region in the world. We've got 70,000 users on that single individual system, all the way down to small SMEs who are looking after 300 suppliers but need to manage their data. So it really does cross all thresholds. Mm-hmm. So this is the entry point. So if we go to our site, you can see here that you can just go to our website. You can click on Start a free trial for Canopy Collect. And you enter the name that you want to call your portal, and it creates a portal. It's completely seamless. We don't touch it. You can create your own site. And once you've created your own site, this is your home dashboard if you're the administrator. And you can see here that here's my supplier data. I might not have entered anything yet. And so the first thing that you really want to do is to think about the data framework. Okay, what data are we going to collect on our supplier profiles? And so Canopy comes preloaded with all the information that you might want to collect. So we give our users a nice template to decide what it is that they want to collect on the supplier data. And here's a standard template here with company information, supplier profile. And if, for example, you'd say, okay, I don't really want to record employer's liability insurance, you can just press the toggle button and that will switch off that data point and it will disappear from your data framework. So you create that data framework of what information do I want to collect from my suppliers, how do I want to structure it, how do I want to group it, how do I want to list it. And in Canopy, we work very much from lists. So a list might be all the countries in the world, all the currencies in Europe, all my buildings, or all my ERP systems. So if I go to, say, ERP system here, I've got a list, and here's the default list of ERP systems I have in my business. And then once I've entered that as a list, I can create it as a data point, and then I can view on my dashboard which ERP systems my vendors are attached to. So Canopy works very much off lists. If I want to create a data point, so we've got some defaults here, you might turn them on, turn them off, edit them, change them, but you might have something really weird in your business that you want to collect on a supplier profile. So you can just go into create a data point, you give it a name, you give the info text, what do you want the users to see when they hover over that data point. It describes what it is and what it does. And then we've got default selections. What sort of data point is it? Is it text? Is it single select, multi-select? Is it fed from a list, a file upload, an expiry date, URL, etc.? So this is all preloaded in Canopy, and you can add to that list if you want to. You decide what group you want that data point to live in, or what subgroup you want that data point to live in. You create it, and then you can turn it on or turn it off at this button. So you can prepare a data framework. You don't have to implement it straight away. You can choose that implementation point. So once I've created my data framework, I'm ready to import my supplier data. Now, even the smallest SMEs tend to operate on Excel. They'll have Excel spreadsheets, they'll have SharePoint directories holding that supplier data. And so we have a wizard here that makes it very easy for somebody to import their supplier data into Canopy. So for example, if I wanted to create suppliers or update suppliers or import documents, I've got a little wizard here. I can say, right, I'm going to build a template of what data points do I want to add to my Excel spreadsheet. And of course, what you're seeing here is the data framework. So I can pick any of these points in my data framework, add them to this list, and then that template will spit out an Excel form that the client then populates with their data, simple upload, and once you upload it, you will see your suppliers start to appear in your dashboard. And this is dummy data, but we've got 54 suppliers in here. If I click on a supplier profile, it's going to take me into that profile. I can see the supplier, I can see their key data. And down the left-hand side here, you can see the data framework is now appearing in that supplier profile. So for example, if I've created contracts as something I want to collect on a supplier profile, you can see that the contracts tab appears in that supplier profile. Everything is in one place. If I go back to my tabs, you can see here that I've got my suppliers on a dashboard. I've then got my contracts. So very, very important for a lot of our clients. They want to manage contracts. They want to see it on a central dashboard. They want to see what's expiring, when it's expiring. So you can see here on a Canopy dashboard, I can choose the data points that I display on a dashboard. And so here, if I wanted to add, you can see here that I've got certain data points ticked, and therefore they're appearing on this dashboard. But if I wanted to add another one, I would just tick that box. It's going to appear on that dashboard. And so I can choose what I see on my individual dashboard by user level. If I go down to my supplier contacts, you've got to think of Canopy really as Salesforce for suppliers. You know, this is where you hold all your supplier information. If anybody wants to see a contact, they can create a supplier contact, they can connect it to a supplier, and they can become the business owner. So we can decide who in our organization is responsible for managing this supplier profile. I can create as many internal users as I like. We want to encourage people. So one of our USPs is the license restrictions. It's unlimited. Get as many people as possible using Canopy. And then once I've got all my data points in on my suppliers, I can then start reporting. So I can create a bespoke report on any of the data points. I can just extract them from the database, give it a name, and then as I start to add my data points to my report, you can see that any data point is available for addition to that supplier profile. I can then save that report, and I can basically store it. I can have regular reports that trigger to a timeline. So I might want to see my suppliers onboarded, my number of suppliers, number of contracts due for expiry. There's a complete reporting tool, and a lot of our clients will export this into Power BI or Tableau and combine it with other client data for management purposes. So that is a very quick whiz through of Canopy Collect. It's $130 a month, which is a very low entry point. And even if you're an enterprise client and you haven't got permission to go and implement a global SRM solution, this will allow you to work, independently, manage your suppliers, share it with people in your organization. And from our perspective, what it helps us to do is to highlight that once you've got the data in, you will realize how much data you have missing and how it's an impossible task to reach out to your supplier and collect possibly up to 200 data points on each supplier profile. And so at that point, we're hoping that our users of Canopy Collect will say, I kind of need to upgrade. And that's where we take them to Canopy Connect, where we connect with the suppliers. And I'm now in the Canopy Connect system. And you can see here, it's a slightly bigger dashboard. And you can see here on the profile admin, you can see that certain supplier profiles are managed by the supplier. We've switched the profile so that when we switch to the supplier is invited to submit the information that we require based on a set of business rules and based on a set of workflow. And then within Canopy, we have what we call standards. And you can see here we've got an ERP-only standard, and that is just enough information to trade. It's all the basic information that an ERP system would need to actually send a purchase order, send a payment, key bank details, etc. And so this gets suppliers up and running very quickly. It might take them 5 minutes to enter enough information to trade, but then you might say at some future point, right, I'm now going to apply the compliance standard to you. And compliance is where we start to generate multiple onboarding pathways based on what those suppliers do. What geography are they in? What category are they in? What spend are we going to be spending with them? What degree of risk are we going to take with this supplier? And then based on that, the various pathways will kick in. Now, an example of the complexity we deal with. Sorry, Joe, was that a question?
Just a question for you. Like, as you're going through this, right? That's where my head was going. Like, you showed us the wizard for import. The users that we could put in. I'm thinking, in larger businesses, this is all already in other systems, and we necessarily wanted to live in that ERP system or in the identity access system. So I'm guessing that when you start looking at these different types of relationships or standards, as you call them, that's where we could start integrating with those systems directly to ensure that the data remains.
Yeah, we have an open API within Canopy, and what most of our clients do, one of the big game changers for a lot of our clients is they'll onboard the supplier information in Canopy, they will approve it. Once it's approved, and you've got a little approval button here that says the status of the profile, then that would trigger the export of those supplier details directly into ERP, create the record for, for example, a new supplier in ERP, feedback the ERP ID, and then you've got the handshake. You manage your supplier data in Canopy, and then it automates the feeding of that information to ERP.
And only based on where they are in the funnel as well, right? If I'm only sourcing with them, I don't need the transactional information yet, so I'm going to keep that off later. So you're not just doing the CRM for supplier thing, but you're also doing master data management down the line.
Absolutely. So if we go into users in Canopy, I can create multiple users, but you'll see here that sorry for the finger trouble. You'll see here that you create different profiles within Canopy to do different tasks. And so you can see here that we've got approve user. So a supplier submits their profile, there might be 200 pieces of data on there: health and safety, risk, compliance, data, security, purchasing, bank details, finance details, company details. And so we create a number of approver users, and that will then feed into the workflow. And so if I start to look at workflow and say, right, that's going to create work lists, you can see here, here's all the tasks that need completing. And I can look at all tasks. So here we've got suppliers waiting for a review by finance or health and safety or infosec or legal. So it manages the complete workflow, and I can just look at my tasks, or I can look at everybody's tasks. And when a supplier profile comes in, and it might trigger, say, for example, a health and safety review, that user will get emailed, and they will come in and into Canopy, look at their workflow, and review and approve that supplier profile. But there's a really good example. If you look, there's a UK company called Securicor. They do locks and keys. That's good. Very, very simple. Can't do much harm. They do pest control. Now that's hazardous substances. They're putting poison down. It's a service. They do CCTV, which requires GDPR classifications, and it's both goods and services. And they do man guarding. So they've got people carrying firearms, which requires an awful lot of safety. And so we track those things. If you onboard Securicor to Canopy, well, what are you onboarding them for? If it's just locks and keys, they're going to get maybe 20 data points to complete. If it's CCTV, man guarding, and pest control, they might have 160 points to complete, because what they are doing is risky. And we manage risk through this request form. So when we start to invite the supplier, if, for example, I say, okay, this supplier is going to handle personal data, and then Canopy will look at the list and say, these are the different types of personal data you can handle. Which one are you going to hold? Well, we're going to hold medical information on your client. You'll see here, immediately Canopy saying that triggers a high risk status. And so any data point can have a risk profile attached to it, and how that appears when you actually go to the supplier profile is, if I go into a supplier profile and I go to their risk tab, you'll see here that this particular supplier is flagging high risk for health and safety. If I expand that, it's going to say, because they're coming on site within the premises and they're providing goods of a hazardous nature. So Canopy allows you to manage your entire risk profile on each and every supplier profile. And I think that's about 15 minutes. So I'll cut it at that point. There's an awful lot more I can show you, but hopefully you've got a feeling for how deep the application can go into managing that supplier data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been harping on this on LinkedIn this week in the lead up to our chat, that like SRM can become, and I think you gave us a flavor of that, can become very complex as you start segmenting, the different risk profiles and the different questions and questionnaires that you have to ask. So I think, you illustrated beautifully that you can scale that though, right? You could start very simple with a couple attributes, couple characteristics, and then scale that up as you see the potential and as you grow your maturity with a tool like this. And before we go to, go ahead, sorry, Doug.
So when you're dealing with enterprises, if you imagine health and safety, risk, compliance, data security, there's about 8 groups who have an interest in supplier data. And you might be looking at 60 countries in 4 different geographies. And so just the complexity of specifying what everybody wants, it can make it a really, really cumbersome process. And we do see these procurement processes going on for a long time at the enterprise level. And for us, it's just, guys, get started. Just get into Collect, start to build your data framework. Then you'll start to understand what data you want to collect and what's available and visible. And some of our success stories, when the supplier, if you've got great supplier data, people will come. People will start to look at it, and everybody in the business gets involved, and these projects tend to get momentum. So just having it available is fabulous for a lot of our clients.
Right. Very cool. So I'll throw you a softball before we get to the hard balls that Sheena is going to throw a little later here. Adrienne in the chat is asking us 2 questions. One is the ERP ID on the left-hand side. I believe that's when you were showing the profile. Is it an ERP assigned record number, or is it Canopy assigned? And number 2, can you deal with multiple ERPs in an enterprise? Or
absolutely. One of our clients, they have 9 ERP systems in Australia. So previously they would say, look, this supplier's on PeopleSoft, but they're not on Oracle. So if you're going to place a purchase order, go into the PeopleSoft system. what they do now is they onboard the suppliers in Canopy. Canopy then spits out the information to those 9 different ERP systems, because some of them work in different ways and want the information in a different format. And therefore, they would create, in a new supplier situation, you'd get that supplier created as an ERP ID in all those ERP systems. So to answer the question, it's the specific ERP ID that is then fed back to Canopy, and then that's the universal object. We know that we're handshaking on the same supplier entity. But we also have a unique ID in Canopy, because you might have a supplier that's not on an ERP system. And so we also have a unique identifier that maps to those ERP IDs. And when you look at a supplier profile, it will show you all their ERP IDs, because a lot of people in finance, they're so familiar with the ERP ID, it tends to be a big issue for them. They want to see that.
Absolutely. Very cool. All right. So on that note, let's throw it over to Sheena for Let's Get Real.
Little more hair than Gabe, and I'm so thrilled to be here today. Thanks for having me. Thanks for that, Doug. It's supplier management is such an interesting space, right? Because there's a big gap between the supplier and management. It can be relationship, it can be risk, it can be information, and I think it's one of kind of the largest and most nebulous areas of best of breed procurement technology. Not to mention, obviously, the suite vendors have that module, and then intake and orchestration, you can kind of make it whatever you want. And so I think what you're doing is solving kind of like the bane of both procurement and suppliers existence in terms of getting them onboarded and getting started and paid, right? And getting the goods and services that we need to run our businesses. But back to what you said at the beginning of the session around the CFO and making that business case. So I've already bought a suite. I've already bought intake to layer over my suite. I've already made a business case for so many technologies. Why Canopy as well?
Well, I think there's usually a big gap, so we've got a lot of corporate clients who use Cooper, for example, for P2P and S2P. And they have an onboarding tool, but it isn't of the sort of magnitude that covers everything. It's very clunky. It's in the form of forms, and suppliers get really fed up that, I get asked 200 questions. None of them are relevant to me, but I can't move forward in the process without answering all these things. And so just the dynamic features of Canopy, and it becomes the conduit. You're never going to give your suppliers access to ERP. A lot of the systems they're internal. And the beauty of Canopy is it's your conduit to your suppliers, because once you start establishing that you can collect any information, then it becomes your conduit. And for a lot of our clients, they will add live chat to their Canopy system. And so if you want anything as a supplier, you want to deal with procurement, you go through Canopy. And that's really helpful, because as you're coming through, if any documentation is out of date or any documents need updating, you're going to see that and you're going to add to it. I just think it's that it really is a missing piece in a lot of client organizations. And it's very complementary to a lot of these bigger systems that are more internal in use. Having that external piece is a valuable addition in my view.
Yeah,
That's yeah, it's cool.
I love the kind of turning it into your 1-800 line for suppliers, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah, people don't really do phone calls anymore, so it just becomes a classic conduit. It is, and we say it's Salesforce for suppliers. It's that sort of application.
Very cool.
Thanks,
Doug.
Doug.
Do you have another question, Sheena? I think we got a.
How are we on time? Are we okay on time?
1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute left. So, a lot of times when we're walking into an organization the first time and setting things up for them and helping to configure their system, you have created such a walk-up process, right? But obviously the business as a whole wants the system set up properly. Like in the example you used about, like, there's a big difference between firearms and
locks.
Locks. Exactly. And so who is typically being system admin here? Is this across your customer base? Do you need a dedicated resource for this, or how is that working so that people can keep the system scalable and growing and the data up to date over time?
Yeah, generally it's the CPO, is the master of the system, because they like to have their own system. So many CPOs are always constrained by data and security and the IT support team as to what they can and can't do. So it's just great for them to have their own system that they can manage. But they'll generally appoint a project manager. We have a weekly call with all of our clients as part of our standard monthly fee. And in that weekly call, we'll say, look, we've got a new business process. We need to alter the data framework. We need to create some new business rules. We want a new process. We might want to create a new user type. So we very much hold their hands with that. And we love those weekly calls. Keeps us, right in the picture. And we prevent them from failing. So many IT projects fail because they become too complex, too complicated. So, these weekly calls, and we appoint a project manager on our side. And so that link tends to be the conduit in both organizations, and works really well.
Awesome.
Yeah, because it seems like it's really like a governance issue, right? Where the technology is pretty powerful. And so it's really based on how you're going to use it that's going to be determinant of your success or not.
Oh, the features are limitless. I mean, we've got a lot of clients now who request product data from suppliers. Well, they're using Canopy to collect product data. So it's almost, becomes a sort of catalog management system also.
Yeah,
having to reach out, collect that stuff, and then find somewhere to store it. The suppliers are actually maintaining their product profiles in Canopy, alongside spend, performance, risk, all the other elements of it. So,
we're going to illustrating that here on screen, right?
All the time, continually grows. Just the number of applications that we pull into Canopy, on behalf of our clients.
That sort of talks to what we're seeing on screen here, which is the ProcureTech market map, where, and I think we discussed this briefly, Doug, before, is you're really going deep on SRM and all the different use cases. Yes, it bleeds into spend analysis. Yes, it bleeds into category management, but the future for Canopy is going deeper and deeper into SRM. Is that correct?
Yeah. Push the work to the suppliers, and make them do the hard yards, if you're trying to onboard 1,000 suppliers, it's going to cost you 1,000 hours. If you invite 1,000 suppliers to update their own profile, it's going to cost you 1 or 2. That's the real value proposition. Such a time saver.
So as we wrap up here, actually, I'm going to test out a new little feature here that I was testing with the folks. Doug, where can folks reach you? Where's the best place to reach Canopy to see?
LinkedIn or the website. Yeah, we operate globally, so but we're fairly UK centric, but any of the usual channels, and love to speak to people. Tell us what you think. It's very much been built by our clients. We've been driven by our clients, and we have a very interesting roadmap. Nothing major, but mainly filling in gaps. We've got a lot of new dashboards coming out for things like spend and performance management. A lot of enhancements on the contract management side. And so we do a full feature release every 2 weeks, just to give you an idea. We're a pretty agile organization. So new features coming out all the time, and they're always available within the standard monthly charge. We do not charge for adding features, or adding users. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Very cool. So thanks a lot, Doug, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Sheena as well for filling in for Gabe here. So just to remind everybody, if you want to keep following the action on the road to the ProcureTech Cup, you can do so with the Pure Procurement newsletter. So there's the QR code in the middle of your screen that you can scan if you're not already following the newsletter. If you need counsel on how to implement these technologies, you can reach out to myself at Pure Procurement or Sheena and Gabe at RiseNow. We're in that business of helping clients maximize technology investments and the ROI from that in your respective context, your respective organization. And if you want to watch any of the replays of everything that's gone on in the season so far, you can do so on the Pure Procurement YouTube channel. So on that note, I'll say thanks, Sheena and Doug, for joining me. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thanks everyone.
We'll see you again
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.